Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where today we are going to be continuing to read The Sleeper Awakes by H.G. Wells. I completely forgot the name of it then for a minute. So, let's begin. A conviction took possession of his mind that this man was dead. He became active and noisy, strode across the room, blundering against the table as he did so, and rang the bell. "Please bring a light at once," he said in the passage. "There is something wrong with my friend." He returned to the motionless seated figure, grasped the shoulder, shook it, shouted. The room was flooded with yellow glare as his landlady entered with the light. His face was white as he turned blinking towards her. "I must fetch a doctor," he said. "It is either death or a fit. Is there a doctor in the village? Where is the doctor to be found?" Chapter 2. The Trance. The state of cataleptic rigour into which this man had fallen lasted for an unprecedented length of time, and then he passed slowly to the flaccid state, to a lax attitude suggestive of profound repose. Then it was his eyes could be closed. He was removed from the hotel to the Boscastle surgery, and from the surgery, after some weeks, to London. But he still resisted every attempt at reanimation. After a time, for reasons that will appear later, these attempts were discontinued. For a great space he lay in that strange condition, inert and still, neither dead nor living, but, as it were, suspended, hanging midway between nothingness and existence. His was a darkness unbroken by a ray of thought or sensation, a dreamless inanition, a vast space of peace. The tumult of his mind had swelled and risen to an abrupt climax of silence. Where was the man? Where is any man when insensibility takes hold of him? "It seems only yesterday," said Isbister. "I remember it all as though it happened yesterday, clearer perhaps than if it had happened yesterday." It was the Ibista of the last chapter, but he was no longer a young man. The hair that had been brown and a trifle in excess of the fashionable length was iron grey and clipped close, and the face that had been pink and white was buff and ruddy. He had a pointed beard shot with grey. He talked to an elderly man who wore a summer suit of drill. The summer of that year was unusually hot. This was Warming, a London solicitor and next of kin to Graham, the man who had fallen into the trance. And the two men stood side by side in a room in a house in London, regarding his recumbent figure. It was a yellow figure lying lax upon a water bed and clad in a flowing shirt, a figure with a shrunken face and a stubby beard, lean limbs and lank nails, and about it was a case of thin glass. This glass seemed to mark off the sleeper from the reality of life about him. He was a thing apart, a strange, isolated abnormality. The two men stood close to the glass, peering in. "The thing gave me a shock," said Isbister. "I feel a queer sort of surprise even now when I think of his white eyes. They were white, you know, rolled up. Coming here again brings it all back to me." "Have you never seen him since that time?" asked Warming. "Often wanted to come," said Isbister, "but business nowadays is too serious a thing for much holiday keeping. I've been in America most of the time." "If I remember rightly," said Warming, "you were an artist." "Was. And then I became a married man. I saw it was all up with black and white very soon, at least for a mediocrity, and I jumped on to process. Those posters on the cliffs at Dover are by my people." "Good posters," admitted the solicitor, "though I was sorry to see them there." "Last as long as the cliffs, if necessary," exclaimed Isbister with satisfaction. "The world changes. When he fell asleep 20 years ago, I was down at Boscastle with a box of watercolours and a noble old-fashioned ambition. I didn't expect that some day my pigments would glorify the whole blessed coast of England, from Land's End round again to the Lizard. Luck comes to a man very often when he's not looking. Warming seemed to doubt the quality of the luck. I just missed seeing you, if I recollect aright. You came back by the trap that took me to Camelford railway station. It was close on the Jubilee, Victoria's Jubilee, because I remember the seats and flags in Westminster and the row with the cabman at Chelsea. The Diamond Jubilee it was, said Warming, the second one. Ah, yes, at the proper Jubilee, the 50-year affair. I was down at Wookey. A boy, I missed all that. What a fuss we had with him. My landlady wouldn't take him in, wouldn't let him stay. He looked so queer when he was rigid. We had to carry him in a chair up to the hotel. And the Boscastle doctor, it wasn't the present chap, but the GP before him, was at him until nearly 2, with me and the landlord, holding lights and so forth. Do you mean he was stiff and hard? Stiff? Wherever you bent him, he stuck. You might have stood him on his head and he'd have stopped. I never saw such stiffness. Of course this, he indicated the prostrate figure by a movement of his head, is quite different. And the little doctor, what was his name? Smithers? Smithers it was quite wrong in trying to fetch him round too soon, according to all accounts. The things he did, even now it makes me feel all, ugh. Mustard, snuff, pricking, and one of those beastly little things, not dynamos, coils. Yes, you could see his muscles throb and jump, and he twisted about. They were just 2 flaring yellow candles, and all the shadows were quivering, and the little doctor nervous and putting on side, and him stark and squirming in the most unnatural ways. Well, it made me dream. Pause. It's a strange state, said Warming. It's a sort of complete absence, said Isbister. Here's the body, empty, not dead a bit, and yet not alive. It's like a seat vacant and marked, engaged. No feeling, no digestion, no beating of the heart, not a flutter. That doesn't make me feel as if there was a man present. In a sense, it's more dead than death, for these doctors tell me that even the hair has stopped growing. Now, with the proper dead, the hair will go on growing. I know, said Warming, with a flash of pain in his expression. They peered through the glass again. Graham was indeed in a strange state, in the flaccid phase of a trance, but a trance unprecedented in medical history. Trances had lasted for as much as a year before, but at the end of that time it had ever been a waking or a death. Sometimes first one and then the other. Isbister noted the marks the physicians had made in injecting nourishment, for that had been resorted to postpone collapse. He pointed them out to Warming, who had been trying not to see them. And while he has been lying there, said Isbister, with the zest of a life freely spent, I have changed my plans in life, married, raised a family. My eldest lad, I hadn't begun to think of sons then, is an American citizen, and looking forward to leaving Harvard. There's a touch of grey in my hair. And this man, not a day older nor wiser, practically, than I was in my Downey days. It's curious to think of. Warming turned, and I have grown old too. I played cricket with him when I was still only a boy, and he looks a young man still. Yellow, perhaps, but that is a young man nevertheless. And there's been the war, said Isbister. From beginning to end. And these Martians. I've understood, said Isbister after a pause, that he had some moderate property of his own. That is so, said Warming. He coughed primly. As it happens, I have charge of it. Ah, Isbister thought, hesitated and spoke. No doubt his keep here is not expensive. No doubt it will have improved, accumulated. It has. He will wake up very much better off, if he wakes, than when he slept. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So I will say thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.